They make it to the finals. You're gonna make the trip across the pond.
Definitely. If we're in the finals, I'll definitely be there.
Awesome. I love it, man. Well,
maybe see you both there for the final.
Oh my gosh! Come on now, sign me up.
Sign me up.
You might be in training camp.
Yeah, I probably won't be able to go. I'll probably be in St. Joe, Missouri.
We'll sneak you out for a night.
Tell me who I need to write to, Travis. We'll get you out.
Right now, as I'm recording this, England are getting ready to walk out in Atlanta for a World Cup semi-final against Argentina. It's the biggest match English football has played in 60 years. And the man who is quite literally the president of the Football Association, he's almost certainly not going to be there. Not for the quarter-final. Not for a single one of England's 6 matches so far. The patron of English football, a man who has spent 2 decades building his public image around his love of the game, has been a no-show for the most dramatic World Cup run in a generation. So, what on earth is going on? Is it scheduling? Is it something colder, something closer to home? And why did William quietly tell 2 American football players on a podcast of all places that he'll turn up the moment it actually matters? Stick with me, because the answer isn't as simple as he's been busy. There are layers here. Family, timing, optics, and a rivalry with his brother that seems to be shaping decisions in ways the Palace would very much prefer we didn't notice. Before we go any further, if you enjoy thoughtful royal family analysis and haven't subscribed yet, I'd genuinely appreciate it if you joined us. It only takes a second, and it really helps the channel keep doing this kind of deep dive. Now, let's start with the basics, because they matter more than you might think. William has been the patron of the Football Association since 2006. He was handed the role by the Queen, and by all accounts, it isn't just a ceremonial box to tick. He has genuine, long-documented affection for the sport. He grew up an Aston Villa supporter, a detail he's mentioned more than once in public, including quite recently. And unlike some royal patronages that feel a little manufactured, this one has always read as sincere. He was pictured visibly emotional at Wembley during the Euro 2020 final. He took his eldest son, Prince George, to Berlin for the Euro 2024 final 2 summers ago, both of them in England shirts, both of them crestfallen when Spain won. So, this isn't a man who's indifferent to football, quite the opposite, which is exactly what makes his absence from this tournament so puzzling. But here's where things become interesting. According to reporting from outlets covering the tournament, William was never expected to fly out for any of England's group stage or early knockout matches. Instead, the working assumption, one that's fairly consistent across British and American coverage, is that he would only make the transatlantic trip if England reached the final itself, scheduled for the 19th of July in New Jersey. Not the semi-final in Atlanta, not the quarter-final before that. Only the final, and only if England get there. Now, on the surface, that's not necessarily sinister. Royals plan trips around probability, optics and cost, just like any institution would. Flying to America for a match England might lose in the group stage would be a very public gamble. But William has form here that complicates the "he's just being cautious" theory, and this is the part almost everyone glossed over. This isn't the first World Cup he's skipped. He wasn't in Qatar in 2022, he wasn't in Russia in 2018, he didn't make it to Brazil in 2014 either, though his brother did, attending a group match there. 3 tournaments in a row, and now potentially a 4th, where the king of English football fandom has stayed home while the team he publicly champions has played on foreign soil. That's not scheduling, that's a pattern. Yet something else quietly happened this summer that's made the absence sting a little more than usual. While William has stayed in the UK, his brother has been doing the opposite, leaning in publicly, enthusiastically on American soil. Prince Harry, who has lived in California since 2020, has been visibly enjoying this World Cup. According to reports, he's set to appear on James Corden's Fox After Show covering the tournament, a light-hearted, celebrity-studded program that's become something of a cultural moment in its own right during this World Cup. It hasn't aired yet at the time of most reporting, but Corden confirmed on air that Harry is coming on in a few weeks, and the story has understandably generated buzz on both sides of the Atlantic. So you've got one brother based in America, embracing the World Cup as a fun, accessible piece of pop culture, And you've got the other brother, the actual patron of the sport, the future king, nowhere to be seen. If you were a royal commentator looking for a narrative, you couldn't ask for a cleaner contrast. And that's exactly what some observers have started to suggest, that William's absence isn't really about football at all. It's about not wanting to share a stage, even an unofficial one, with a brother he's reportedly still not speaking to. That's only part of the story, though, because the timing of this World Cup collided with something far more personal. Just weeks before England's semi-final, Harry made a trip back to the UK, his first extended visit in years, ahead of the one-year countdown to the Invictus Games in Birmingham, the disability sport event he founded. According to CNN and multiple other outlets, Meghan had originally hoped to join him with their children, but the trip became complicated by an ongoing dispute over UK government security arrangements. In the end, Harry travelled largely on his own, staying through the 11th of July, while his children reportedly did get to see their grandfather, King Charles, during the visit. What didn't happen, according to widespread reporting at the time, was any meeting between Harry and William. No reunion, no public appearance together. Sources cited by several outlets described the brothers as still having, in one phrase making the rounds, no communication. William and Tate were reportedly absent even from the private family moments that did take place. If accurate, that's a striking detail to sit alongside William's World Cup absence. Here you have a summer where the two brothers were, for a brief window, in the same country, and by most accounts they never crossed paths. Whatever is going on between them, it doesn't appear to be softening. Which brings us to perhaps the biggest question of this whole story. Is William deliberately staying away from the World Cup because Harry has become part of its cultural conversation in America, or is that reading far too much into an issue that might simply come down to diaries and diplomacy? Because there's a competing theory worth taking seriously, and it has nothing to do with Harry at all. Several commentators have pointed to the current state of UK-US relations as a quieter, less headline-grabbing explanation. Relations between London and Washington have been strained in recent months, following criticism from the American side directed at the Prime Minister over foreign policy matters. For a working royal whose visits abroad are inevitably read as political statements, whether he intends them to be or not, turning up in the United States mid-tournament, surrounded by television cameras and international press, carries a different kind of risk than it might have a few years ago. A quiet decision to wait for the final, where the optics are simpler and the reason for travel is unambiguous, starts to look less like avoidance and more like caution. There's also a theory that's made the rounds involving England's captain, Harry Kane, who has been reported to have friendly ties with the current American president. Some have floated the idea that William might be steering clear specifically to avoid being photographed anywhere near that dynamic. It's an interesting theory, but it's worth saying plainly, this one is thinner than the others. William has never publicly commented on American politics in any capacity, and there's no direct evidence connecting his travel decisions to Kane's personal relationships. If anything, this theory tells us more about how eager some corners of the press are to find a story than it does about William's actual thinking. So where does that leave us? Probably, if we're being honest, with the least dramatic explanation of all, even if it's not the most fun one to talk about. William is first and foremost a working royal with a genuinely packed public schedule. He was occupied with Wimbledon and a run of other engagements throughout the tournament's group and early knockout stages. Add in the sensitivities around the family rift, the political climate, and the simple fact that flying across the Atlantic for a match that might end England's run early is a real gamble for someone whose every move is scrutinised, and a wait-and-see approach starts to look less like coldness and more like pragmatism. But it's a gamble that's paid off spectacularly, hasn't it? Because England didn't crash out early. They scraped past Congo DR in the round of 32, they ground out a difficult win against Mexico with 10 men on the pitch, they turned around a match against Norway to book their place in the semi-finals. It's been messy, occasionally nerve-shredding football, not the free-flowing dominance England fans might have dreamed of, but it's also been enough. Enough to put them one match away from a first World Cup final appearance since 1966.
And this changes the entire conversation. Because now the wait for the final strategy looks like caution, born of low expectations. It looks almost prophetic. If England beat Argentina this evening, William's promise, made, of all places, on an American football podcast, suddenly becomes very real. That promise is worth dwelling on for a moment because it's genuinely one of the more charming details in this whole story. Weeks ago, William made a surprise appearance on New Heights, the podcast hosted by NFL stars Travis and Jason Kelce. The two had met William before, back in 2024, in one of those wonderfully odd celebrity crossover moments. Travis Kelce made a surprise appearance during a Taylor Swift concert at Wembley that William attended with his two eldest children. On the podcast, the trio reminisced about that night, joked about Jason Kelce's exhaustive rundown of William's many titles, and talked football. Real football. English football, the kind William clearly loves discussing when he's not performing a formal royal engagement. And near the end of that conversation, William made his position clear. If England reached the World Cup final, he told the Kelces, he'll be there. See you both there for the final, is roughly how it was reported at the time. Not a hedge, not a maybe, a promise made casually to two American athletes months before anyone knew whether England would actually get that far. So tonight's semi-final against Argentina isn't just a football match. For William, it's the difference between a quiet summer home and a very public, very symbolic trip to New Jersey, one that would put him back in the spotlight after weeks of conspicuous absence, and one that would arrive, whether by accident or design, in the same summer his brother has been the more visible royal presence on American soil. There's a historical echo here too, worth pausing on before we wrap up. English football has waited 6 decades for another World Cup final. The last time it happened, in 1966, the reigning monarch, William's own great-grandmother, the late Queen, was there at Wembley to hand Bobby Moore the trophy. It's the kind of full-circle moment royal historians love to point to. If William does make it to New Jersey, he won't just be a football fan cheering his team, he'll be standing in a lineage of royal involvement in England's football story that stretches back to that famous afternoon in 1966. Whether that's part of his calculation or not, and there's no way for any of us to know for certain, it's hard not to notice the symmetry. Of course, none of this is officially confirmed by the palace, and it's worth remembering that royal travel plans are rarely announced until they're locked in. Publicly available scheduling information and previous reporting patterns suggest William's team likes to keep these things flexible until the outcome of a match is known. So take the "he'll only go to the final" reporting as the most consistently repeated version of events across multiple outlets, rather than a formal statement from Kensington Palace itself. What we can say with more confidence is this: William's relationship with football has never really been in doubt. What's been in doubt, tournament after tournament, is his willingness to be photographed enjoying it on foreign soil, while everything else in his life, the family tensions, the diplomatic sensitivities, the sheer weight of being heir to the throne, sits just underneath the surface of every public appearance he makes. Tonight's result will answer at least one part of that question. Win, and we may well see the Prince of Wales in New Jersey on the 19th of July, keeping a promise made on an American football podcast, closing a loop that stretches back all the way to 1966. Lose, and this quiet, complicated absence simply continues, another data point in a pattern that stretches across 4 consecutive tournaments. Either way, it says something rather revealing about modern royal life, that even something as simple as watching your own national team play a football match becomes tangled up in family politics, international relations, and decades of institutional caution. I'm genuinely curious what you make of all this. Do you think William's staying away has more to do with the rift with Harry, or is this really just about political timing and a packed schedule? And if England do make that final, do you think we'll actually see him there? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I always read them. If you've enjoyed this deep dive and you want more thoughtful, properly researched coverage of the royal family, not the sensationalized stuff, but the kind of analysis that actually respects your intelligence, I'd love for you to subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel keep doing what we do. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.